to this new episode of our show. Today we have the pleasure of having with us Matteo Battaini, who is a senior executive with a very broad experience in the automotive sector. Matteo graduated in management engineering at Polytechnic of Milan. And today is the Chief Sustainability Officer at Pirelli, leading the company strategy and the execution of the strategy towards net zero by 2040 and other important targets related to that journey of sustainable transformation. He covered previous roles with Pirelli, Chief Marketing Officer, Senior Vice President for Procurement and Supply Chain at the group level, also CEO and the COO for the North America region. So very, very involved in different global dynamics and projects for the company. Is also today acting as a CEO and representative for Pirelli in the World Business Council for Sustainable Development and served from 2017 to 2024 as a board member in the European Tire and Rubber Manufacturing Association. Plenty of experience to share for this conversation on the future of global value chains. Matteo, thank you for your time. And maybe you can add some color to this biography I just read.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Paolo, for the introduction. Maybe I try to summarize a little bit my experience in supply chain, in the company, in the automotive industry, and starting from the beginning. So I, as you said, studied management engineering at the Politecnico di Milano with a thesis in logistics and work experience connected with that on one of the big names of the chemical and pharmaceutical industry. Then I joined Pirelli in 1997, so almost 30 years ago. So let's say a broad experience about the company and the industry. I joined as a junior logistics engineer. I moved after 3 months in the US for my first experience over there. And then I took roles of increasing responsibility in marketing, supply chain, procurement, operation, as I said, in Italy and abroad. And I think that each of these roles gave me a different perspective. I learned how global supply chains and supply network can become the backbone of the business, can drive the growth of what we call a customer-centric value business proposition. That is the basis of, let's say, the Pirelli business model. And also learning how fragile they can be in time of disruption like the one that we are let's say, discussing in this period. In 2018, I became the CEO of Pirelli North America in a moment where we were transforming that market and that supply chain in a local for local with a local for local operations and approach. We have built a factory in Mexico that nowadays is one of the biggest factory that we have in the group. And leading in this market, I have experienced a lot about the importance of agility and innovation, especially.
Absolutely.
Today, I have. Please, if you have some.
Please go ahead. I think it's interesting and in a way, fascinating that, how did the journey probably prepared you for your, sustainability role. But you were going to probably speak about that, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was saying that, as I said, today my role is Chief Sustainability and Future Mobility Officer. So I'm focusing, looking ahead, looking at what usually not everybody in the company looks, so targets at 5, 10, 20 years in advance to understand how future generation of consumer and how future way of doing business can impact the company and this future business model. And we are using a lot the innovation and technology approach in approaching also the sustainability part, because this is becoming a strong value proposition for us, for our customer, to be able to respond to regulations and all as I said, the future generation of consumer, they see in sustainability a strong value for brands and products that they are willing to buy. And so we are doing that. We have big programs, as you mentioned, the programs of decarbonization, being net zero by 2040, so in advance compared to all the rest of the industry. Future of supply chain and future of sustainability, I think, is not just about technology. is also about people and partnership and the capability to involve all the value chain inside this journey. So we started
Absolutely.
analyzing our scope 3 in decarbonization, the relationship with supplier, with all the chain, the most fragile one. And we are starting also to involve our customer in. An example, we just
Yeah.
launched a sustainability journey program for all our retailers that, let's say, are sharing this value and are, let's say, contributing to the
Yeah.
success to the sustainable supply chain till the end.
No, that is super. Go ahead, Paolo. Sorry.
I was just going to say, let me say something, Matteo, that maybe, you are not going to say, but I'm independent, so I can say it. Pirelli is such a good story of sustainability. I mean, it's remarkable, what you have achieved, over the last decade. And I guess, really a good example of a smart, sustainable transformation for not only, your sector, but for many other companies in other sectors as well. So So let me say now, congratulations for the good work you have been doing.
Yeah, now congratulations to all the people that was in Pirelli, to all the people that was, let's say, leading the Pirelli management. Because, I mean, since year 2000, we were publishing the first sustainability report. So it's a long story and a long journey.
And also listening to this amazing story, like a 30 years of story, it's all about also how the market evolved. I heard about the story of like globalization first, but then also how probably the sector becoming more and more local. You mentioned like, the involvement of the customer. So from the bottom to have a better response, from like the chain to the bottom or the Mexican plant. So probably to serve North American like area and be closer to the market. I guess you're doing the same across several regions. So regionalization is something that now, of course, we are hearing a lot of that. The question is, what do you see on that? Is that happening? What do you want to highlight in the sector you're?
As I said, I've seen supply chain evolving in the last 30 years. If I have to summarize and to make some, let's say, draft of what supply chain are and has been, I think there are three things. One is the physical flow and the operations, number of supplier, customer, and the link that you have with them. The second one is the exchange of data and information. And then the third that I will touch maybe later is people and partnerships. And if I look at the evolution of this, so when I enter in this company, Pirelli, in the 90s, there was not even the email at that time. Every country, we work nowadays with 12, 18 plants in 18 countries and 160 markets, but every country had his own supply chain, his own supplier. Nobody knew what they were doing in each single country. There was no exchange of information and so on. Then information become available. You see what happenings, you understand what you can do better, and the market were open. From a local/local approach, we were going to a global/global approach, global flows and global information.
Yeah.
Nowadays, this is changing. It's changing in a direction of what everybody calls localization. So I think that the visibility and that information is remaining global.
Yeah.
So big companies are managing in a global way the choice of supplier, the information and everything that is the management, the risk management around that. But due to what is happening geopolitically, the issue of reducing the risk of having a closer link between customer and producer, the supply chain, the physical supply chain is becoming more local. And
scenario planning, I guess.
Yeah.
And scenario planning, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, in this context, Matteo, sorry if you wanted to
Oh,
complete your sentence. I was just kind of jumping in to say, in the context of these kind of drivers, do you recognize any having a more, I guess, importance than others, or they have got all the same weights?
I think they have they are stronger weighting all of them. So I think that We are in a moment where we do have geopolitical tension and trade barriers that are coming on the market that are pushing to diversify supplier and footprint. We have a need for risk mitigation. Just remember COVID, just remember Suez crisis or the Ukraine war that stopped supply chain. I'm talking mostly about the automotive, that is the one that I know, but I mean everybody was invested by these shocks. We do have inflation linked also to the uncertainty of tariffs in this period, and that is let's say shaking all the cost equation, and digitalization is reducing dependencies also on low cost labor and countries. That was the basis of the globalization at the beginning of the year 2000. We do have the sustainability wave because the environmental crisis and the ESG policies and the ESG regulation are leading companies to rethink their production models, the material that they use to lower carbon footprints, and all of that. And then, as I said, we have the customer that at the end is the one that is driving everything, that wants a faster and reliable delivery and supply chain. So all this, I think, drivers as an equal weight if I have to balance and shifting from global efficiency to regional resilience.
Yeah, exactly. On a operational supply chain perspective, so very technical like question. Which are in your sector, maybe top three elements like to really representing differentiator and to success? I don't know, supply chain visibility or the time to market or just cost of raw materials. Which of them are like most important you would like to mention?
Number one for sure is resilience.
What do you mean for resiliency? Be plan
Resiliency,
development, scenario planning. What do you mean?
I mean to be able to understand very quickly what is happening on the supply chain, being agile in respond to disruption and changing demand. We have experience in the example that we were making before during the COVID period in 2 to 3 weeks. We have, let's say, we had to be able to understand how to divert flows to, let's say, keep the factory open, to understand what customer were doing, and you can do it if you have a clear relationship and visibility with all your actors. And it's not any longer, I mean, when we were making strategic planning or scenario planning years ago, it's a matter of months or years to make the planning. Now in days or weeks, we have to be able to reshuffle all the supply chain if you want to, let's say, be successful on the market. Visibility and traceability of the supply chain is technology adoption, is people and partnership at the center. So these are the key factors that I see as fundamental to stay on the market today.
No, that's super interesting. Also, is there, is the sector, which are the most important or slash impactful, stakeholders in the sector? Of course, a customer, I mean, I think easy to mention, are there any others? Maybe from the supplier point of view, is there any criticalities to mention here?
If I think about the stakeholders, the ones that are driving our, let's say, supply chain slash sustainability strategy, so the one that I'm working on, for sure, customer is driving. Customer for us are two type of customer. Let's say our direct B2B customer, like the big car makers. So the evolution that all the automotive sector is going through is pushing in developing supply chains that are linked to the evolution of the automotive sector, and what they ask for is our driver. Then we have on the other side also consumer. Just to give you a balance, we make something like 25-30% of business directly with car makers and 70% in the aftermarket going directly to the consumer, the people that change tires when they're used. So also the weight of the consumer side of our B2C business is very strong. And here on consumer, especially in the field of service, values, and also sustainability are very relevant in our decision. And then we have investor, because also they are having the possibility to have a continuous development and continual investment in our, let's say, strategy, business model, and activities is needed. And then last but not least, there is also strong evolution in terms of regulation that are impacting our sector, that are closely linked with ESG, let's say, target and objectives. But in example, or the transition of the automotive towards electric, or to what will be the new sustainable mobility,
Yeah.
I think is affecting a lot our way of working.
Absolutely. And I guess one of the objectives of this, podcast is really to try to understand, what is happening in different sectors. And I'm wondering if there is a case study of value chain restructuring that you would notice that you think is particularly interesting, and maybe you wanted to share it with our audience. Not necessarily a Pirelli story, but could be someone else.
But I mean, I take it with a larger view, but I have to talk about the automotive supply chain, because I mean, this I think is one of the supply chain and the industry that is transforming most in the last period. And if you think of what has happened in the last years, in the past decade, the automotive supply chain, I think, has been tested like never before. We had the Dieselgate, the COVID-19,
Yeah.
the transition to electric vehicles, and all these forces have, let's say, forced the industry to rethink all the fundamentals. If you take Dieselgate in 2015, that has begun as a corporate scandal that quickly became an industry-wide tsunami. So the stricter emission regulation emerged overnight, and
Yeah.
supplier that has invested in technology linked to the diesel engine disappeared in weeks, in months, and everything has to be reshuffled. Then with COVID-19, an industry like the automotive that was based on the, let's say, longer use, let's say, just-in-time manufacturing operations,
Mm.
let's say, was the rule of, let's say, leading the supply chain of the automotive. With COVID, everything was stopped. No? So just in
Yeah.
was, no? And I mean, the industry closed, and Athens factory shut down, the semiconductor shortages, and all the logistics crisis that took almost 1 year to recover to the, let's say, a stabilized situation. And then
Interesting.
we have the shift to, let's say, new kind of vehicle. Let's take the electric vehicle to take the most important one. It's not just electric vehicle, but are software-defined electric vehicles. It's
Different.
a different way of building a car. And this is
Yeah.
reshaping the players that are on the market, are reshaping the time to market, newcomers,
But
there is
also production lines. I mean, also
production
plants.
line
Yeah.
is the most, let's say,
Yeah.
challenging and disrupting that is happening in supply chain today.
Oh, yeah. So going to maybe a more managerial umbrella, also considering a multi-decade experience all around the world. Now, are there maybe a couple of initiatives, a couple of experiences that you want to share with us, since you are proud?
If I have to mention one that recently we have pushed and alight that is linked with supply chain and sustainability, is what we call our certification with the Forest Stewardship Council of the natural rubber that we do use in the tires. What is behind this? So we decided around 2018. At that time, I was vice president of purchasing, together in partnership with BMW, to understand if we can make a different supply chain, sustainable supply chain for the natural rubber. Tire industry is using more or less 70% of all the natural rubber produced in the world, so has a big responsibility on that chain, and is a very fragile supply chain, because I mean, it starts with farmers that are owned maybe 20, 50 trees of rubber, and there's a long chain that goes more than 7 steps. Is in countries Thailand, Indonesia, Brazil, that are, let's say, developing country with issues about also human rights and everything related to that. So in terms of supply chain is, as I said, very fragile with a lot of sustainable issues. Forest Stewardship Council that at that time, but also today, is very famous for wood. Like in example, IKEA is using that for all the furniture that I have. All the big names of the packaging goods like Unilever, Procter & Gamble, Tetra Pak, in example, are using FSC for the paper industry and the wood industry. And we said, why not to do the same with rubber? And so we started engaging all these farmers, all the producers, our customers in this story. In 2021, we put on the market the first tire with 100% certified FSC rubber in it, together with BMW. Starting from the 2024 season, we introduced this in Formula One. So now
Nice.
all the Formula One tires and all the motorsport tires that we use are with FSC tires. We just, let's say, sign, an agreement, overall agreement with Jaguar Land Rover for having being the first customer at volumes that are using 100% FSC certified tires. So, I mean, it's a story that's linked together a reshuffle off in the supply chain, in the target of being more sustainable, where we have been able to put together supplier on one side and customer on the other side and create value for the consumer.
That's an amazing story,
Fantastic.
going cross industry, cross country, from like little things then becoming, international and super big, having an amazing impact. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, well done. And I guess we are reaching the end of this episode, Matteo, and this is the moment in the show where we kind of pass to our guests the crystal ball, asking them about the future. I guess the question is when you look at, for example, let's say 3 years from now or 5 years from now, do you recognize the same drivers that characterized the last 3 years as drivers of the evolution of global value chains, or for example, you see new topics coming at play, or maybe certain existing topics becoming more relevant in the future?
Yeah. But, if I look, for me, 3 years is still, let's say, short-term horizon, and there I see more an evolution than a real change. If I look a little bit after that, and in, let's say, my field, the field of what we call future of mobility, what I see is that the paradigm is that mobility will become more cleaner, more safer, and more convenient. The three words that are driving the evolution. There will be autonomous driving that will take the lead in mobility that will become more and more as a service than as a, let's say, in fact, that we have the property of the tools in the mobility, especially in the urban environment. And then, fortunately for us and for Pirelli, for our business model, there is also what we call emotional mobility. That is what we enjoy about moving during the weekend. That is keeping its role and is increasing its role as a valuable experience. So with let's say a stronger position also on that. The key driver that I see in this evolution are the same that we have experienced in the past. So an innovation towards a more sustainable and more digital business model and the way of working and dealing with the new generation of consumer that are looking at this value and are looking at the value of having a sustainable brand with a sustainable supply chain as a focus. And this, in practical terms, for our sector means including more practices in circular economy, using more material that are sustainable, less fossil, with less emission and carbon footprint, using smart tire technologies. We are introducing in the market tires with sensor that can transfer the information that they read from the road directly to the car, directly to the user. And this is the new frontier of, let's say, product like the one that we do. And then there is all this adaptation to the transition to the electric vehicle specific demands and requirements. I mean, a lot of new things at the horizon that will come as an evolution. So let's say I don't see strong disruption, but this is the
The
line.
big picture scenario. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Matteo. It was great to have you in our show. And again, congratulations for all the good work you're doing at Pirelli, driving change not only in your company, but in the entire sector. Thank you for your time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed this discussion, we invite you to like and share this episode on your social media. Enjoy the rest of your day.